You know, if I didn't know any better, I'd say nobody in creative, nobody in charge had any goddamn clue who the Black Scorpion was supposed to be. So they said, Rick, put on the mask and the bodysuit and go out there and try to save this. Ric Flair can only do so much in some situations. I'm John Retton with the retro view of WCW Starrcade 1990. There was a tag team tournament to honor Pat O'Connor, and there were also a few other matches, and this did not feel like a Starrcade. It mostly felt like a Clash of Champions. Like, they really could have just taken half of these matches, put them on the Clash of Champions, and it wouldn't have been a miss, because a lot of the tournament matches really didn't mean anything. The finals did. There were some good moments on this show, and there was a pretty good bloody street fight that ended in controversy, but honestly, this was a really messy Starrcade. This was like peak Jim Herd, where they didn't have a goddamn clue what they were supposed to do with most of this show. And they were like, well, fuck it, just make a messy finish. Wait, make another one. Let's just make everything a messy finish in these big matches, because we have no fucking idea what we're doing, because Jim Herd's a goddamn idiot. So, they were in the Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis, and Sam Muchnick was also there, because he's a longtime promoter in St. Louis. And it was great. It was great to see that Sam Muchnick was, able to, get an appearance on a, pay-per-view broadcast. Longtime promoter, great history, study up on him. He really, apparently was a really damn good promoter. JR and Paulie dangerously on commentary. We have Bobby Eaton versus the Z-Man. Okay, Tom Zenk. This is like a month after he had done the crossbody into, onto nobody, just into like dead air because Brian Lee was too far away. And Tom Zenk was like, hey, I'm just going to fucking do this. I was on the Clash of Champions the month before. You can check out my retro review of that. And Eaton carried Tom Zenk here. Zenk tried to even pin Eaton on the ramp. It was not a Falls Count Anywhere match. That proves just how intelligent Tom Zenk was in the match. If he didn't have somebody to lead him, he wasn't very goddamn good. Basically, Eaton won with an inside cradle after Zenk missed a move off the top. And there you go. Bobby Eaton got the victory. And then we have the flag ceremony for the various teams in the tournament after Dick the Bruiser basically shouts. Unfortunately, Dick the Bruiser would die not even a year after this. Longtime territorial wrestler and well-respected veteran. But it really is a shame that he passed away not even, a year after this. I think he was only 62. And then we began the Pat O'Connor Memorial Tag Team Tournament. International flavor because we have teams from various countries, including the U.S., like the Steiners from the U.S., and then we have the Colonel de Klerk and Sergeant Kruger from South Africa. That was Rocco Rock, the future Rocco Rock, and Matt Bourne, the future Doink. And they were in camo garb, and this wasn't very good. The Steiners ate them alive in 2 minutes. Frankensteiner for 3. There you go. And then we have Conan, yes, that Conan, and Rey Mysterio Sr. Rey Mysterioso is what he was called here, or Mystic. They really couldn't make up their goddamn mind what they were supposed to call him. Versus Gentleman Chris Adams, who wasn't really much of a gentleman if you read up on him, and Norman Smiley, yes, before he became the big Wiggle Man. They represented the UK. This is at least a little better. It was a good, mix of styles. Reverse suplex and a bridging pin wins it for Team Mexico. Unfortunately, Ray Sr. does crash on the outside, and they seemingly had to cut the next match short because he had injured his knee, so Conan had to carry the load there. And then we get Michael Wall Street and Alexandra York talking about Terry Taylor. Funny that Wall Street would leave soon after this to be IRS, and Terry Taylor would join the York Foundation as the computerized man of the 1990s. And I will once again say, whenever I think of technological advances, I think of Terry Taylor, Mr. Red Rooster himself. He will never escape that. He probably shouldn't. It's a shame because he was a hell of a worker, but apparently wasn't a very good guy. So maybe the Red Rooster gimmick, mocking him and haunting him, is fitting. The royal family, Jack Victory and Rip Morgan, representing New Zealand versus Mr. Saito and the Great Muta of Japan, as opposed to the Great Muta of Delaware. So they were in the quarterfinal match. Muta was very over because he had just been in the company previously. I think like February of 90 he had left. It was fine. Wasn't bad. German suplex pins Victory, and then Paulie dangerously interviews Team Japan. Saito's broken English actually wasn't that bad. Muta just did the throat slash and the green tongue and everything, and the face paint, because Muta's just that goddamn cool. Great Muta, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Him, Jushin Thunder Liger, and Masahiro Chono got me in to New Japan Pro Wrestling. And when I had a buddy that actually used to, his uncle used to do tape trading, I would actually see some of the tapes in the early to mid 90s, and I fucking fell in love with it. I don't remember how old this stuff was, but my God, it's like one thing. I'm so glad the New Japan World exists so I can go back and watch some of this stuff, not just on VHS. Anyway, so we get Bull Johnson and Troy Montour, not Mantar, representing Team Canada, versus 2 guys I'm not even going to try to pronounce. They're two Russian guys from the Soviet Union. Wasn't good for pay-per-view, but I will say the Soviet guys are really skilled on the mat. And double arm suplex for 3, I think it was like 3.5 minutes. Then we get a Sting promo. Sting is back, and he'll find out who the Black Scorpion is. That's pretty much it right there. He gets fired up, and he flexes and scares Shivani at the end of it. And then we get Michael Wall Street versus Terry Taylor, the future computerized man of the 1990s. That will always make me laugh. The computer that Alexandra York used, the future Terry Reynolds, by the way, in case you're wondering who Miss York is, calculated that Wall Street could beat Taylor in 8 minutes, 32 seconds or less. And he beat him in like 6.5 minutes or something like that. Or maybe it was like 6 minutes, 15 seconds. But not too bad. Well wrestled. Both these guys are very good, despite the, the shit that I gave Terry Taylor earlier. He has a stun gun on the ropes, and, dropping him on the ropes, by the way, not using an actual stun gun like to end Goldberg's streak, or like Harley Race used to carry around when he carried a taser. And we get the stock market crash, which was a Samoan drop 1, 2, 3. So Wall Street manages to, prove the computers are accurate, and Miss York is always correct. York Foundation didn't last very long. So, we get the Motor City Madman and Big Cat versus the Skyscrapers. Spivey and Sid Vicious. At least Vicious was there. And boy, they had to do an assisted powerbomb that took like 20 seconds to get the Motor City Madman up there because, one, he didn't want to go, and Sid, as strong as he is, could only do so much. And there you go. And then the Skyscrapers scare Paul E. That was pretty funny. Tommy Rich and Ricky Morton with Robert Gibson on crutches versus the Freebirds with Little Richard Marley. And the Freebirds, by the way, were Michael Hayes and Jimmy Jam Garvin on steroids. The pace was good. It was like 6.5 minutes. A good, nice double figure 4 spot. Later, a crutch to Richard, and he accidentally bumps off the ropes into Jimmy Jam Garvin, and that was courtesy of Ricky Morton because he still had knee surgery and was recovering from it. And then Garvin gets rolled up 1, 2, 3, and then they beat up Little Richard. And then the faces come back, but leave Morton on the stage. So they're trying to save Little Richard, this guy that has been a thorn in their side. And then Garvin and Hayes lay out Morton just to get their heat back, so to speak. Then we get the Steiners versus Team Mexico, and it was 3 minutes of his powerbomb, Ray's Senior, 1, 2, 3. Teddy Long then, they showed footage of Teddy Long setting up Ric Flair to be kidnapped when he was his chauffeur for the day, after Ric Flair had beaten Butch Reed in the main event of the aforementioned Clash of Champions 13. Which, by the way, really was only good because of Flair versus Butch Reed. That was like the only good match. So yeah, Ric Flair is not going to be part of this tag team match that he was supposed to team with Arn against Doom in a street fight. Gee, I wonder why Flair was taken out, huh? I wonder. And basically, Arn and Barry are fired up. They're going to beat the shit out of Doom. Then we get Saito Muda versus the Russians. Well, no one really cared about the Russians. Saito hit a back Saito suplex, so to speak. 1, 2, 3. I think it was like a couple minutes. And then Teddy and Doom talk about the street fight. They're going to beat up the Horsemen. They're going to beat the shit out of them. Teddy Long basically says a bunch of stuff that I didn't really care about. He wasn't quite the verbal master that he would be later. And then we get Lex Luger and Stan the Lariat Hansen in a Texas Lariat match for the U.S. title. Basically a rope, like a strap match, tied or taped to their wrists. And this was, violent enough. I mean, for 1990, when WCW didn't want blood, that didn't really help in the next match. But Luger basically got to where he'd almost touched all 4 corners and then got launched into the 4th corner, touched it, but the referee went down at the same time. So another ref comes down, seemingly not knowing that monitors and cameras exist, and, was like, Hansen touched all 4 corners after Luger was knocked out, and Hansen was declared the winner. The other referee came to and said, no, even though this guy knocked me out, and I clearly saw it, I didn't come to till just now. Luger won. That way Hansen kept his, heat, so to speak. And Luger, is the new U.S. champion and would hold it until Great American Bash 1991, when we want Flair, and Luger would win the World Championship, and we want Flair. Because nobody wanted Luger as champion, even though you could argue that him beating Flair would have meant something. Flair left because Jim Herd was a goddamn idiot. Jim Herd should have never been put in charge of WCW. We would have never gotten the ding-dongs, but I think that's a small price to pay. So, we then get Doom and Barry Windham, or Doom versus Barry Windham and Arn, street fight for the NWA tag titles. Holy shit, this is bloody. Now, it wasn't particularly great, but it was a war. It was like 7.5 minutes, and they just beat the shit out of each other. Both horsemen bled. Arn really bled. And they were just whipping each other. Yes, the whites were whipping the blacks, and the blacks were whipping the whites, and a whole bunch of really, good action here. Chair shots to the head. Ouch. No good. Low blow. We get a double pin where I think it was Barry topping Butch and Ron topping Arn, or maybe it was reversed. One horseman topped member of Doom. The other member of Doom topped the other horseman. So it was a double pin, so it was a no contest. Doom retained the championship because the tie goes to the champion. But that was like the only thing I really hate about it, because like you could have just had Barry take the fall. Barry was gone from the company soon after anyway. He would go back and be the Widowmaker, Barry Windham. Or maybe I'm getting the timeline messed up, but I know that he wasn't in. Maybe he was. He would just bounce around a whole lot between WWE and WWF, or WWE and WCW, that is. And so then we get Team Japan and versus the Steiners, and this was at least good and hard-hitting enough. It wasn't great, but at least made up for some of the tournament matches. It also was about 3 times as long as some of the tournament matches, just over 10 minutes. Ring bell by Muta behind the ref's back, takes out Rick Steiner, but later, Rick Steiner, off the top, sunset flip, pin Saito, 1, 2, 3. They win the Pat O'Connor International Memorial Tag Team Tournament. Gauntlet for Bound for Glory. Sorry, that was a flashback to another one. It was good that they honored Pat O'Connor, but it was such a wordy goddamn title. Then Jim Herd congratulates them. For what he's worth, Jim Herd should have never been on WCW programming, or in the company. And then, the Black Scorpion Sting, they hype all that shit up and everything, and then multiple Scorpions are arriving, and then a spaceship lowers. Apparently, the Black Scorpion lives in a spaceship. Here's the thing. Once it was revealed, it was like Al Perez and various other. There was a magician that played, I don't remember the magician's name, but he played the Black Scorpion doing all the magic tricks, which was cool. He was able to do that stuff, and that was nice. It didn't belong on a goddamn wrestling program, but this match, oh fucking dear. One of the worst cage matches in WCW history. One, everybody could fucking tell when you looked at it was Ric Flair in a mask. And it's not even knocking Rick, and he tried to change his offense, but you couldn't hide the chin. You couldn't hide the fact that Rick was still in great shape at that point. You couldn't hide it even in a bodysuit. No wonder Rick left a few months later. No wonder he wanted to be, get Jim Herd out of his hair. It's a good fucking God. And by the way, it's a steel cage match for the World Heavyweight Championship. If the Black Scorpion wins, he wins the title. If the Black Scorpion loses, he must unmask. Dick the Bruiser was brought in for this. This match was atrocious. Fucking goddamn atrocious. Absolute atrocity. The cameraman's on top of the cage, which is really goddamn dangerous. I mean, they probably should have had him like on some kind of, rope or something around his waist so maybe he could have been caught, or have a crash pad below, because if they hit the cage wall too hard, he's going right over on his goddamn head. It was cool visuals, but really, really dangerous. Yes, wrestling's dangerous, but fucking hell. Cage wall, we get, attacks with the cage wall, stuff like that. Scorpion's unmasked. Oh no, there's a mask on a mask. But then he bleeds. That right there should have told everybody it was Ric Flair, because Ric Flair always has to bleed. Ric Flair probably bled when I mentioned this. Ric Flair probably bleeds whenever somebody reviews one of his matches. Crossbody for 3, and then other Scorpions attack. And Dick decides to help by pounding the Black Scorpions. Dick bruising them and pounding them repeatedly. I'm going to keep saying this until it's uncomfortable, because Dick the Bruiser. R.I.B. Dick the Bruiser, but the name. My God. My God. You can't expect fans, with a rational way of thinking to not turn it dirty, and you especially can't expect me to not turn it dirty. Arn and Barry get in, and we get a big old attack and everything. Z-Man and Bobby Eaton, Morton tried to come down there, not Bobby Eaton, that would have been weird. And then the Steiners come down with bolt cutters. They're trying to cut through a chain, and Barry's trying to get at the chain. Barry's nearly getting his finger snipped off by the goddamn bolt cutters. Barry may not be the smartest individual in the world. And then, unmasked with seconds to spare, and it's Ric Flair. My God, nobody saw that coming. Because it didn't make any fucking sense. Yes, Ric Flair was from Sting's past. They had teamed up in the past, at Halloween Havoc 89. And then Sting was kicked out of the Horsemen after being part of the Horsemen just to set up for Wrestle War. But yes, Sting got, his knee shattered. And they had to, his ACL tear, and he had to come back, 5 months later, miraculously. They were supposed to apparently make it the Ultimate Warrior, but the Ultimate Warrior was in WWE. So, and he was current champion at the time. So unless they were going to pay a king's ransom and somehow get him out of his contract, man, could you imagine Warrior and Sting trying to have matches in the 90s or in 1991? That would have been terrible. And El Perez wanted to be the Black Scorpion. Black Scorpion's a goddamn mess. Here, you know what? There. That's all I gotta fucking say about that. That's it right there. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.